Welcome to itracks webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Our webinar will include a presentation on international research logistics and technology tips to make your next project a success. The webinar presentation will be provided by Monica Grebe, itracks Senior Project Manager, and Joel Schmaltz, itracks VP of Client Development. Monica attended Penn State University and Atlantic County Community College, where she studied in the field of business management. She has over 15 years of experience in the market research field, and she's adept in both qualitative and quantitative research across all regions of the world. She has managed qualitative domestic and global research projects, moderated and traveled to observe and presented results to internal and external clients. Having worked with a global company, Monica has extensive knowledge of the global market research industry, including appropriate types of research, fieldwork, and project management. In her career, Monica has managed everything from recruitment to mixed methodology, domestic and global studies involving over 20 countries. In addition, I'd like to mention that Monica was recently promoted to a leadership role, managing a number of itracks project managers and operations staff. Also presenting today is Joel Schmaltz. Joel is itracks VP of Client Development. Joel first started his career in the market research industry in 1999 with itracks. He was hired to oversee the qualitative services division. He helped develop and pioneer a large number of the online qualitative research tools in use today throughout the industry. Joel led the development of the first iteration of itracks' industry-leading bulletin board focus group software, now known as itracks Board. From there, he pursued a career in information technology and worked with companies across Canada as a consultant. Joel returned to itracks in 2006 and assumed management responsibilities for the systems department and subsequently led the operations group for itracks from 2008 to 2012. Over the past few years, Joel has been in a sales role. He's been working on business development and assisting clients leverage the technology to develop solutions that satisfy their research needs in a way that is efficient, innovative, and cost-effective. In addition, he assists clients in finding value in transitioning their current research practices into online and mobile environments. We are looking forward to the great insight that Monica and Joel have learned through their many years of experience conducting global research. I'd just like to make a note, as questions come up, please enter them in the bottom of your GoToWebinar panel through the chat there, and if it works, we may address the questions as they come up, but we will definitely address all the questions during a question and answer session that will be at the end of the webinar. Thanks, and go ahead, Monica.
Thank you all for attending today. Hopefully you'll get some interesting information out of our presentation and our webinar. I want to talk to you about international research. There's a lot of different intricacies that go into it. One thing that's really important is time is really relative. People march to the beat of their own drum in different countries. As soon as possible, it does not have a universal meaning. Respondents show up on time in some countries, but not in others. And if you're working with a good team, they know that, and it doesn't fluster them. You have to go with who and what you know. You have to develop solid partnerships. Good local moderators and translators are hard to come by. When you find one, stick with them. Never underestimate the value of a quality research partner. They're invaluable to you. Working with the same moderators and translators increases your researchers and many times your client's comfort level and decreases their stress level. If they're comfortable with who you're working with and they're working with on a regular basis, then it makes you look all the better to them. Good partners will look up names of relevant products in the category before the first interview in your country. Make sure if you've got your solid partnerships, you can rely on these people to provide you with brand names that will frequently vary by country. If you're working with pharmaceuticals in particular, generic names are often the safest way to refer to a drug. because a Lipitor isn't called Lipitor in another country. You should expect your partner's desk researchers to do all of this for you in all of the countries being fielded. As I said, they're your best friends. Managing the backroom during your groups is also more complex. Your clients' teams get larger with the addition of local affiliates. Different research priorities by country can sidetrack the research. Everybody has their own opinion. Having a single line of communication with the local moderator and translator is critical. You don't want your affiliates going directly to your moderator and translator and changing things when you don't know about it. You need to always be flexible, and you need to always expect the unexpected. Like I said previously, your local moderator is your best friend when something unforeseen happens, because they're the ones that are going to handle it for you, because they are the professionals in their country. You need to be aware of local holidays. Your partners will alert you to holidays in various countries that you probably never knew existed. When using a trusted local partner, you know that your research will not be scheduled at a time when no one's going to show up because it's a local holiday, even if that's when your client wants it to be. Sometimes we just can't have what we want. A single source partner in each country is really the best way to go. It's the most efficient way to do your research. A single point of contact for translations, recruiting, moderating, deliverables, etc. All partners and their teams must have documented experience in the market you're researching, and all partners must be responsive to email within reasonable U.S. hours. Once you have that partnership, your team is complete, and you need to stick with it. What to look for in a global partner? You want to look for real experienced players, not hobbyists, not people that are doing one-off projects now and then because they need the extra money. They need to be organized. They need to be individuals who can flex up their resources as necessary. They have to have confidence in their ability to meet recruitment criteria. Based on previous experience, generally, if your partners cannot meet the criteria, they'll tell you that. This, too, is a huge plus, because the last thing you need when you're going into research in a country you've never been to before is to have somebody say, oh, yeah, I can do that, and then drop the ball at the end, or make you crazy the day before your research because you're not fully recruited. Deep experience in the topic in that geographic market is also extremely important. You don't want to have someone who only has experience in B2B doing pharmaceutical work for you. You want someone who's experienced in pharmaceutical. The other thing with having a good partner is they can direct you to the people who have the experience in other topic areas. You want to customize solutions that are flexible and adaptable. Our clients don't want excuses. They want solutions, and that's what you should expect your partners to give you. They have to have the ability to meet your schedule and the flexibility on pricing that you may need. That's the extent of my part of the presentation. Now I'll hand it over to Joel. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Monica. And that was a great start to the presentation. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to echo Monica's sentiments. I appreciate everyone who is attending today, and looking forward to going through some technology considerations for conducting international research that may include other languages. I've got a few slides coming up here relating to some statistics regarding world internet penetration rates by geography, and what we're seeing here is a percentage of the population that has access to the internet. So you can see that Africa is up and coming, and Asia as well. The Middle East actually is a little bit higher than I was expecting when we put these stats together. North America obviously very high, and we're seeing Europe at just over 70%. as well, and Australia right around the same area. So a lot of easy to find, good penetration, good solid penetration in Europe, North America, and Australia, which is to be expected. But Latin America and Asia are certainly coming along. I think what we're seeing here at itracks is really kind of echoing these internet penetration capabilities. As an online provider, we do see, or we're conducting a lot more international research now than we ever have before in the past. Some of the considerations that you may want to think of before you engage on a project in some of these other countries is the countries with high internet penetration are going to be better equipped for web-based applications, and it often varies based on the variance of income, based on the audience that you're looking at. So definitely a consideration when you're going after consumers in an emerging market like Brazil, for instance. So it might be a little bit tougher to find some of the lower income folks in Brazil for consumer-based research, as an example. Similar to the internet penetration, countries with high internet usage are also better equipped for web-based platforms. So again, we're seeing the stats here in terms of usage per 100 people. The fixed broadband stats are also interesting. What we're seeing now is, I've got another slide coming up here that's going to talk about mobile, but from a fixed broadband internet subscriber perspective, we can see that we've got some really good penetration in the U.S., and that would include Canada as well, whereas some of the other countries are actually fairly low, but that's because we're seeing a transition over to actual mobile-based internet. So what fixed broadband gets you is higher bandwidth for doing things like video-based research, for instance. We're doing really quite a bit of video research in the U.S. and Canada right now, and that's because a lot of people have access to fixed broadband, and even fiber in Canada is starting to become commonplace in some of our bigger centers, where you have just a tremendous amount of bandwidth available in the home. I mean, we probably have Netflix to thank for that. So here's the mobile slide or stat that I was talking to, and it's really interesting. If you look at Argentina and Brazil, for instance, even Bulgaria and China, or pardon me, Chile, you can see that people are actually having more than one mobile subscription. So people are using, in these emerging markets, they're using their mobile devices to provide their internet access, because it's simply cost prohibitive for some of these countries to go in and install infrastructure to people's homes, whereas they can actually gain a lot more subscribers just by beefing up their mobile capabilities. So what we found in particular in Latin America, when we're conducting research there, is a lot of our respondents are actually leveraging mobile-based internet to participate in studies. So and actually mobile technology is getting a lot stronger as well in terms of bandwidth capabilities. So we're finding that less and less issues from a bandwidth perspective when they're on mobile internet. Some of the technology tips that we can cover as well in terms of managing languages. So we also support a certain number of languages in one of our core products, and then we'll actually make in or other partners that you may be working with. Keeping the research to within those markets just leads to a better experience overall for the success of the research project. Incentive distribution considerations, we've started to leverage PayPal on a regular basis for markets outside of North America. Sometimes sending a check, for instance, to a respondent in China, as an example, they could actually incur, a 35 or 40% service fee just to deposit that check in their bank account. So PayPal has worked really well for itracks as an example for distributing cash-based incentives. Some of the other things that we really encourage are technical checks, for instance, for real-time groups where you're actually meeting with people in real time, whether it's video-based or chat-based. You maybe want to have a bit of a technical check with the respondents ahead of the real-time discussion occurring. And then on the discussion board side of things, which is asynchronous research, which takes place over a period of days or even weeks, we like to encourage moderators to set up practice exercises that are not necessarily research objective based, but things that are fun and engaging for the respondents and kind of takes the software for a quick test drive. So if you're doing an in-home usage test with mobile video capabilities, for instance, you could set up a little bit of a fun exercise where they're leveraging the video capture technology on their mobile device, and then you can kind of get a real feel on that day one of the research on who is going to be very successful in the video responses, and which respondents maybe are going to be have some challenges, and then the itracks tech team can support them. And then just remember that you might want to build extra time into your project timelines so that you have an opportunity to provide some additional technical support to your respondents if it is required, and itracks can certainly support those initiatives as well. So I'm going to pass control of the webinar back over to Garnett, and Garnett is going to facilitate a question and answer period. So Garnett, why don't you take it away, and looking forward to answering some great questions.
Great. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation, Monica and Joel. So I'll just note to everyone, at the bottom of your GoToWebinar panel, there is an area that you can input questions. So we'd be happy to answer questions and go through any project examples or different things that you'd like to further discuss. During the course of the webinar, we do have a couple questions that came in, and so we'll go through those. All right. So either Joel or Monica, the question here is, how much time do you budget as additional logistics time for an international versus local project? So for example, for a 3-group project.
Monica, would you like me to answer that one? I certainly can.
Either way, go ahead. Go.
So some general guidelines that I'll provide are practical in nature and still can be impacted by the target demographic that you may be looking for. But what I've found is any countries kind of in the G7, for instance, we are usually looking for an extra week in field from a recruiting perspective. And then when we get into some of the other more challenging markets, for instance, Japan can take a little bit of extra time. So we typically are looking for about 3 weeks in field for recruiting in Japan. Russia's another country that we'd like to spend a little bit of extra time in. But the G7, for instance, Great Britain, Australia, France, Spain, Italy, generally 2 weeks is enough time. And then within North America, Canada, and the U.S., we can typically turn recruiting around in about 5 business days. Now, again, this does depend on the audience, but that is kind of a general rule of thumb that we apply to any international recruiting.
Great, thank you. Monica, during your presentation, you mentioned the importance of managing the backroom And the question is, do you have any tips in managing multiple stakeholder objectives?
Multiple, I missed.
Stakeholder objectives?
I think that a lot of that should be taken care of up front before your groups start, so that everyone has an understanding of what they want to get out of your research. If you've managed all of the stakeholders, the affiliates, your client, and anyone else who's going to be in the back room up front, it'll save you a lot of grief during your groups. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. All right, we have another question here. I like the idea of PayPal for incentives. Does it impact incidents? That is it necessary to screen for PayPal, or do you instruct them to set up a PayPal account? Is it easy to execute?
I can answer that. It certainly is not, I haven't seen a problem with any PayPal incentives in my experience doing international incentive fulfillment. Typically what happens when a respondent does not have a PayPal account, we provide some brief instructions on how to get that account set up, and they can then go ahead and do that, and then once they have their account set up, we can process payments. So we would typically indicate in the during the screening process that we would be paying incentives via PayPal, and then the respondents can make a decision. But I haven't really seen a significant impact on our incidents when we're paying international respondents via PayPal.
Nor have I. I agree with you, Joel.
And just an additional comment with respect to execution. It is very simple to execute. The only thing that you need from the respondent is the email address that their PayPal account was set up under. And once you have that email address, you can just send the payment, and they'll receive a notification in their email that that payment is available to them. Great. Just a note, itracks does have a great article regarding incentive fulfillment and some of the pros and cons of different options, and that is available on our website, itracks.com, and under the resources tab. And Lynn Back, our VP of Finance, has put together a great resource on pros and cons of different incentives and some of the considerations to be made. But the PayPal is available in all different currencies, so that is a nice additional perk. All right, so if you have any more, we are getting to the end of our list of questions. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat area there. Oh, we have another one here. Does itracks have established research recruiting, moderators, etc., partners to offer a total solution?
I can take that one as well. We do have a relationship with moderators and recruiting partners in international markets. We've done research probably in most countries over the last probably about I'd say 6 to 8 years that we've been doing quite a bit of international research, and we've actually got some great relationships with partners in Latin America and in Europe, and they can really knock it out of the park when you're working with partners in those local markets, because they understand the holiday schedule, which is something Monica touched on. They've also got local panels that they can reach out to from a recruiting perspective. And then we have partnerships in place as well with some of the bigger panel source companies here in North America, and they've got great high quality respondents from a B2B perspective that you may not find really anywhere else. So lots of definite capabilities from the itracks partner network. Monica, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I agree with you. I think we have most markets that we offer covered in regard to moderators and translators and simultaneous translators as well if you need those. So I think that we could probably cover any market that anyone wanted to go to.
Great, thank you. Another great question. Do you have any tips for managing the confidentiality of PII, or personally identifiable information, when managing multiple partners and people involved?
Monica, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I believe that most of actually all of the partners that we work with work under CASRA rules. They understand, they're all market researchers. They understand the importance of keeping PII private. So I don't really think that there's any kind of a difficulty there, because that we all work under the same standards and guidelines for all over the world.
Great.
That answers the question.
And I'll just add a note on that. In terms of confidentiality, it is really important to have agreements in place with the partners that you're working with, and that if you are working with a local partner conducting global research, you need to ensure that they would have the proper agreements with their subcontractors, and that is something that itracks takes careful attention to in making sure that confidentiality agreements are in place. All right, thank you very much for attending today. It was a great turnout, and we wish you the best in all of your upcoming global research endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been my pleasure.